What is up, everyone? First and foremost, hope you guys had an awesome weekend. You stayed safe and you enjoyed your friend time, family time. You just enjoyed yourself. You deserve it. So tonight we're going to do a really quick session, just kind of go over a couple different stocks I'm watching this week. And at the end of the little session, we'll answer a couple questions and maybe review a little bit more charts, probably about 30 minutes or so. So it's going to be quick. But we'll start off with everyone's dick hard stock, Tesla. So Tesla, real quick, took about 11 days to make this 40-point move, right? And then it took about 3 days to lose all of it. So we're at a very, very key point in Tesla. If you see here, we're right at the bottom of the trend line. So we're pretty much at a make or break it point. We can either flush and continue lower at that gap fill right there, about 248, 250 would be the target with this little gap fill. For everyone that does not know, gap fills are imbalances into the market. Market does not like to have imbalances. So therefore, we want to kind of just be mindful of where the gaps are. In this case, there's a gap right here. So that's the imbalance. So if we end up falling and flushing and not forming another higher low. So right now we did just form a higher low. If we continue downwards, this is my major target, 250. Okay, so then something else to be aware of, we did bounce off of this moving average. So this is the 300-day moving average, the exponential moving average on the daily time frame. So the bulls want this to hold. The bulls want 272 to hold. The bears want this to pierce. So if you're a bear, you want this to give up. If you're a bull, you want this to hold. Then the next level we have is this moving average as well, exponential moving average 200-day. For people who are not aware, this is an algorithmic area. Hedge funds love to position themselves around here. So considering the price action is below this area, this 280 level, 280 moving average right there is acting as a resistance. So if we end up coming up here to 280, this will be one of our major resistances that we need to pretty much break through in order to continue higher. So at the moment, we're kind of just in a little bit of a range. We're in from 272 to 280. 272 needs to pierce, and we come all the way back down to 265. If 280 holds and pushes through, then the next real area would be 285. And then we kind of just keep going from there, about 290. All right. So on the monthly time frame, we do have somewhat of a head and shoulders pattern forming. So there's a shoulder, there's a head, there's a shoulder. So this is something to be aware of. And also, this monthly candle does not look very bullish. Right. So it's kind of something also to be aware of, that this monthly candle looks pretty bearish. So we could very well see continued downside on Tesla. Just kind of be something aware of, but all we really care about is bulls want 272 to hold. If not, then we go to 265 and then we go to the gap fill. Whereas, okay, if we end up holding this and we break through about 275, then we can get to 280, 285. We also have 287. 290. All right. So that's Tesla in a nutshell. Now, everyone's second favorite dick hard stock is Apple. So the daily candle looks pretty interesting. It's showing a hammer after a downtrend. So that's a possible bullish reversal signal right there. Because when you see these hammers form, especially towards the end of a downtrend, that's something that kind of, in a sense, raises your eyebrow, and you want to be aware of that because it could possibly continue higher, right? Or we could just drop and keep going lower. It could go either way. So we do have a falling wedge as well on the hourly time chart. So it really depends on how futures ends up holding overnight. We could maybe end up holding and gapping up. Maybe not possible gap up, but we could see some movement right out of the gate on Monday morning. And also another thing to be mindful of is this key 300-day moving average on the daily again. this is acting as resistance. 151.65 needs to be marked on your chart because this is going to be another resistance area because the price action is below it. All right, so the bulls want this area to pierce. We want to pretty much push and reclaim this area, and this area we want to find new support at. If we end up rejecting this area, then this is a good spot to actually add puts with a very tight stop loss. So if you end up, if let's say the bears end up, waking up at 151.65 region, you can enter puts and your stop loss would be above that psychological whole number of 152. Vice versa, if the bulls just keep, gaining steam, then we want to push through 151, and then we would go to 152.50. We would go to 153, 153.60, 154, 155, and then 156.50. I'm not really interested in puts on this one unless we break below pretty much like 148, 147. Other than that, I'm only going to be looking to short the pop. So like if we see weakness somewhere in here and we end up forming a lower high somewhere down up here, then I'm going to short that pop. Other than that, I'm not really looking at shorts here unless we do not hold this low right here. So just that's pretty much Apple in a nutshell. Next one, Amazon. Another one that's been on a massive downtrend. We ended up holding a key area about 112.50 last week. And we do have, now something we also want to be mindful of here is another tiny little gap to fill. So gaps like to be filled. So if we end up falling more, 111 will be your target. If we end up holding 112.50, then we can continue up. And we have also another little hourly falling wedge as well. So ideally, we want to see 115 break for calls. And then we already kind of have our little targets here, 116.50, 117.50, and then this little high right here about 119. All right. And then if we end up falling, we don't hold, then we can continue down to 112.50, 112, 111, and then we would have to go on the daily to see what else we have. Probably like 110, yeah, 110.50, and then that psychological key number 110. 110 will probably definitely get defended if we end up going back down there. There will definitely be buyers sitting there waiting. But that's pretty much Amazon, pretty cut and dry. We're in a little falling wedge. If we break to the upside, here are the targets. If we break to the downside, here are the targets. Leave that on the screen for you guys real quick. And then I have one more real quick, and then we'll do a couple ones that you guys have in mind. So Netflix is very, very interesting as well. So if you see here, kind of take note of where we are in the price action. So we've been consolidating for months, right? We're just been in this consolidation range from low to high, and now it looks like we are either forming a new higher low. So we're bouncing off of this. And if we end up bouncing and holding 220, then we could possibly come right back up to here somewhere. So about 240, maybe upwards of 250. Whereas if we do not hold, then we already kind of know our major target. Our first major target will be at the bottom of this trend line that's been holding for months. So pretty much about 215, 216 will be your target. So Netflix, definitely keep on watch for the next couple of weeks because it's at a very interesting spot. And the premiums move pretty quickly. So definitely something to keep on watch, because if we end up falling from this little pattern here, our next major real target isn't until like $200. So we can get a pretty good play potential either side. We can either get an upside potential of about, who knows, 20, 30 points, or we could get a downside potential of about also 20 or some points. right? So definitely this is another one to keep on watch. Now this one is a teeny bit more money premium wise, it's a couple $100. So if you're not able to afford that, perfectly cool. But for people that have medium and larger accounts, definitely one to keep on high watch. Hold on, I got a couple requests for 1 sec. I'll do SPY real quick. So SPY, we're pretty much at a make or break it, honestly. We did just form a new higher low last week. The bulls defended 363. We ended up forming a higher low. We pushed off of it at the end of the day. Shorts ended up covering themselves. We're now at 368. So it really depends on how futures is doing. Let me see how futures looks right now. I'm pretty sure it's pretty flat. Yeah, it's still pretty flat. So we're not really going to know for a couple more hours. But I would like to see something like this happen. Truthfully, I'd like to see this gap being filled. So something hopefully like this. And then we either hold and continue higher, or we end up trapping a lot of buyers, picking up all that liquidity, and then just kind of going right back down and then continuing lower towards this bottom of the trend line. So the bottom of the trend line I'm talking about is right here. This is what I would like to see hold, about 253. So if we end up falling below 255, 253, and if we don't really hold that, our pretty much our line in the sand is 250. So if you do see us under 250, it's probably going to keep tanking to at least 240, because that's our next major area, is the pre-corona high, so 240. So if we cannot hold these lows of 255, we go down to 250, and I'm so sorry, 350, 355, 350, and 340. Excuse me. Sorry about that. But yeah, that's my SPY analysis. I'd like to see that gap being filled before any further downtrend, because we did kind of take a little bit of a hit recently. How long of a hit did we get? About 7% or so. So so the likelihood of just a straight falling out of the gate, so basically just a straight continuation down right off the bat Monday morning, isn't super likely. Historically, over the last 9 months, the likelihood of a second day follow through after just a massive drop isn't really super likely. We might get kind of a retracement down to the lows, basically trap out sellers, pick up liquidity, and then continue higher. But I don't really think we're just going to go straight down. Very well possible, but that's pretty much my third scenario. My first scenario is we fill the gap and then either hold and continue higher, or we just flush under. That's kind of scenario one. Scenario two, we retrace in the morning, come down to pretty much like 365 region, trap out a lot of people, and then just continue higher. Or we just kind of consolidate and then either go lower or higher. There's a couple of different ways to go about it. So we don't want to just have one specific bias going into tomorrow. We want to have a couple different scenarios in the back of our mind, truthfully, because unfortunately, a lot of new investors and new traders kind of just have this one-sided bias coming into the market. They're just like, oh shit, I'm bullish or I'm bearish, right? And that's truthfully not really the way to look at it, because just because you want, subconsciously you want the XYZ stock to be bullish does not mean the stock market owes that to you. Like, there's been so many times where friends of mine, even myself included, when I first started trading, I would just have this inherent one-sided bias, and that's all I would think about the entire day. I was like, okay, I'm waking up, I'm bullish today. I'm real bullish, even though if the price is not, the price action is not showing me that. It could just be lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, just constantly downtrending, and I'm over here trying to, buy the dip in a sense. and there's no dip. It just keeps on going. Right. So we want to just kind of get that subconscious bias out of our mind and just play just fluidly. Be like, okay, either bullish or bearish. Like just flip back and forth. Like as you guys kind of see sometimes in my analysis, like if I'm wrong or possibly invalidated with my calls, 10 minutes later I could be bearish. 5 minutes later I could be bullish. Like whatever the case may be. I don't just have one specific bias. Like I play what is provided to me. I either am bullish, bearish, or I just sit cash if there's no true opportunities for me. So that's something that's really, really important to kind of get, embedded in your mind, because unfortunately some people will just be strictly bearish or strictly bullish, and that's really, not super wise. Kind of just getting a little bit off topic, but something that's super, super important to realize is most news outlets that you're probably watching, like Fox, and like, any big major news outlets, CNN, Fox, etc., is the biggest propaganda ever. Like example, like this is probably the biggest prime example. So remember, fast rewind a little bit. Remember back in June and July when most of the news outlets were just calling this possibly the absolute worst recession ever. Inflation's all-time high. We're basically a lot of bearish sentiment coming through. And most people inherently, subconsciously thought it was going to be the end of the world, thought it was going to be super bearish. So when they saw this, they either pretty much were a deer in a headlight and didn't think it was real and just tried to short the entire thing. And those people are not probably, they blew their account because they tried to short this, or they just set cash and didn't take advantage of this at all, even though we had like a 50-point rally, 60-point rally, excuse me. Right. So like the news is telling me I'm bullish, or excuse me, the news is telling me I'm super bearish. Why the hell is this happening? Like, why are we getting this massive rally? Right. So sure, we might very well have a horrible inflation. We might very well have like terrible, terrible numbers, etc. But currently, at that current time, back in July, the stock market did not give a singular shit. And as a short-term trader, as a scalper or an intraday trader or a short-term trader in general, you also don't give a singular shit. All you care about is what the market is presenting to you, how the price action is looking, and that's it. You don't want to just be like, oh, well, the news is telling me this, this, and this. That gives you a subconscious bias. And we do not want subconscious biases, because you either missed out on this entire opportunity or you tried to short this and you got absolutely obliterated. Now, if you were lucky and, were fluid with your bias and you were bullish and bearish during this entire time, you made off like a bandit, because this was a massive, massive opportunity to grow your account. So that's, I got off a little, got a little off topic right there, but this is super, super important to realize. Like, this is a real life example. The news was telling me everything is horrible, everything's bearish, blah, 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 blah. Why is the stock market not doing the same thing? Right? Take news as a grain of salt and just play what is presented to you. Super important. Hope that makes sense. All right. So honestly, I'm not really going to do QQQ. It's pretty much the exact same scenario. Like, we're at a make or break it point. Here are the levels if you want to check it out. Honestly, like, here are the levels. They're exactly the same scenario. We either bounce here, fill the gap, and then drop, or we just drop. SPY and QQQ kind of go hand in hand. Yeah. All right, let me look at some of these questions and what do we got. Is your newsletter on Boiler Room website? I do not see it. It will be on tonight. I'm waiting for Brett to upload it. He was at a movie, so it should be uploaded probably within hopefully an hour. Apologies about that delay. Won't happen next week. All right. What stock do you guys want? Coin? Yeah. I'll go back to SPY real quick. Here are the levels for SPY. There you go. One sec. There you go. I'll do coin next for people. A lot of people are asking about coin and meta, so I'll do those two real quick. My goodness, lots of people want meta. Okay, one sec. All right. So I didn't really look at this one truthfully, so give me a sec. Let me look at it for you guys. So we broke out of this massive bearish low flag that we've been consolidating in since June. We came down to 138. How is the monthly? So we're actually at a pretty key area here. So if we don't hold this 138 low, we can come down to 137, and then we don't really have a major area until like 135, 133. So meta's definitely at a key area. We can either just drop back down somewhere here, or we can continue higher, and because we're at 52-week lows here, so we could very well bounce higher. And if we do, then our next real area would be, let's see here. Let's do the 4 hour. Yeah, so meta, we would like to see pretty much 141 break. So right here, we would like to see break. And then we have a little pit stop right about here, about 141.80. So that's a little pit stop. And then we have another little liquidity area where participants are willing to step in at 142.60. And then another little area pretty much right around here. So 143.50, 144, 144.60. So those were the upside targets. And we could also go maybe upwards of up here somewhere, maybe like 147. Downside targets we already pretty much know. If this area holds, excuse me, if this area fails to hold this 140 region, this is pretty much a good entry for puts. And our first real target would be 52-week low, so 139. And then we already have our next targets right here. So that's meta. Hope everyone enjoyed that. What indicators do I use? I use exponential moving average 200 day, exponential moving average 300 day, and I use VWAP. That's honestly pretty much all I use. I also use about SVP, so it's a volume profile. It looks kind of like this. One sec, if it loads. Yeah, it's a volume profile. I'm not really going to go over that, but that's another indicator that I use. All right, what else we have? What's a good account size to start weekly withdrawals? I mean, honestly, it's a pretty broad question because it could go anyway. Like if you're comfortable trading a $2,000 account and maybe you make like $500 or like a week or like $1,000 in a week or two, something like that. Then you could just withdraw that money and just start back at 2,000. Like if you're comfortable trading 2,000, that's fine. You know, it really, I mean, it really depends on what you're comfortable trading with. Like if you're comfortable trading with 5K, just hang out with 5K. And then whenever you get above 5K, maybe you get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, just withdraw it all, you know, pay yourself and start right back at 5K. So find an amount that you're comfortable trading and then just kind of just stay around that. Like for me, for example, like I'm perfectly fine with 10K. I'm perfectly fine with 25K. You know, like I don't need some $50,000 account. Like if I can make my profits within a relatively short amount of time, like under an hour and be done, you know, I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine. I don't really care as long as I'm making a good bit of money within like 15, 30, 45, like an hour and a half, whatever the case may be, cool with me. So it's very, very broad question. It really depends on you specifically and what you're comfortable with trading. And also like if you have bills, et cetera, et cetera. I don't really know your situation. Hold on, let me keep looking at the chat. Hey Scrub, so I was reading the Telegram about your premium newsletters and I'm very interested. Any way we could get a little preview of what they would look like? Thanks. Yeah, sure, why not? Give me a sec here. There you go. So this is the newsletter that we're going to be releasing tonight. This is the information you'll get for the premium version. So you get market news, you get weekly earnings and news, you get SPY, a lot of SPY information I put in this week, calls and puts with QQQ analysis, lots of stocks to watch, information. So with the regular version that you'll see just for free on the free version, like the basic version, you won't see stocks to watch. You won't see this extra information of SPY analysis. You won't see weekly earnings or news, and you won't see market news. So honestly, it's definitely worth the kind of a small fee, because honestly, the analysis will, one play is all you need to make this back. So honestly, but yeah, that's my premium newsletter. Appreciate your interest, and you're the best. Hold on, what else kind of ones we have? We have a lot of coin. So hold on, let's do coin. Tons of coin. No lifetime versions currently, only weekly and monthly. Yes, I do plan to have a quarterly and a lifetime version a little bit later, just not at this current moment. We're just doing weekly and monthly tiers. Appreciate your interest as well. Okay, so coin. So honestly, coin's another one that I've actually had on my radar lately. So coin is a very, very high short float name. Very high short float, and it's been usually doing pretty well when we come on lows like this. It usually bounces relatively pretty strongly. So like in this case, if you see here, we had a nice little low and we bounced pretty strong, had a very big drop, bounced relatively pretty strong. So we could do something similar if we end up holding this low, pretty much about 60 bucks. We could end up targeting somewhere up here. About $70 will be my first major target. And then we do have a tiny bit of a gap fill, if you see here, just a tiny little sucker. So that would be the next major target right here is 73. If we end up not holding 60 bucks, then our next real area would be, let me look on the monthly, weekly. Next real area would be here at 58.40, 58.50, here and here. So 58.50, 57.80, and 56.65. So we're at a very key area right here. If you see here, we had 2 weeks worth of resistance. Well, technically bounces, but now they're acting as a resistance. So we definitely really need to see over 62 in order to be interested for calls. So a call entry would be over 62. And put entries, I really wouldn't be interested in until pretty much this we break structure. So if we break structure and we get below 60, we're good for puts. And for calls, I would want at least 62. Oh goodness, a lot of questions about the newsletter. Okay, I appreciate you guys for your interest. Is the newsletter available through Boiler Room website? Yes, it will be up on Boiler Room website, hopefully within the hour. Brett's just at a movie right now, so that's why it's a little bit late. So appreciate your patience about that. But yeah, it will be on the Boiler Room website for purchase starting tonight and every single weekend. I release them on Sundays, anywhere from about like 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, you'll get it a lot earlier than this week. So a lot of people want it LULU. So all right, let's check this one out. I personally don't even trade this one, so give me a second. Let me do some analysis. So we did just form a higher low recently off the lows right here. We would want this area to hold. This is the new area that we need to see hold. We have a little gap to fill right there, so that's our first major target. Let me look on the weekly actually. We've been holding the uptrend for a bit now, basically since before back in June and July. So that's what I'd like to see for sure. If we end up falling from 290, our next real area is, you guessed it, this key 200-day moving average right on the weekly time frame, right? So that's definitely my first major target, would be this right here, 280, let's just call it 285. And then my first major upside targets would be right in this box right here. Lots of liquidity likes to be provided there. A lot of participants will be stepping up here at 295 to 296. If we end up breaking through that, we got 301, we have this gap to fill. And then there's another little area right here. If you see here, a lot of participants right there. That's 2 months worth of price action. So now let's go down to a smaller time frame. Now we pretty much have our short-term targets. If we fall below this low day, we get a 285. If we still keep falling, then we go to the next psychological whole number, 280. And if we continue forward, we break above this 296, then we have this gap to fill. Hold on, let me scroll back up real quick. Page scrub our targets based on previous highs and lows and gaps. That is one part. They're based on historical data points such as support and resistance. They're also based on trend line pivots. They're based on supply and demand. They're just based on pretty much key liquidity areas, so where participants are willing to step up. Hope that helps. As far as gap fills, how come there are gaps on a daily chart, but sometimes in a lower time frame, it looks like they are already filled? Here, let me try to show you a real life example for people that are confused by that question. Because I know exactly what you mean. So sometimes, just kind of use this as a reference. So sometimes on a daily, you'll see a gap like this, but on maybe like the hourly, you'll see this entire thing filled, right? So honestly, the only real reason that gaps are a thing is because of the overnight session. So like if you ever look at the futures, there's never any gaps ever on the futures. But if you look on SPY, which is, the ES is SPY in a sense, you'll see a gap, right? You'll see September 12th to September 13th, September 12th to September 13th. You don't see it. So pretty much the reason that gaps are filled is because of the overnight sessions, and sometimes the participants can really drag the price down super quickly or kind of rally it up really quickly, and that can then create the imbalance in the overnight session, which then reflects in the regular hour sessions like the 9 to 4. Because if you see here, that was a pretty large drop, and that happened decently quickly, which is why we had that gap. Hope that helps. Any particular reason you don't use smaller EMAs such as the 9, the 20, and the 50? I use the 20 for trending markets. So like if it's trending and not choppy, so it's very important. It's not choppy, but it's an uptrend or a downtrend, and we're kind of extended. I would use so kind of a good tip is the 20-day moving average, 20-day exponential moving average on the hourly time chart. Wherever that is sitting. So like, let's just pretend that this is the 1 hour, 20-day moving average. Let's just pretend. So, and we're just trending. So we would the price action would want to come back to that. It's kind of acting as a magnet, right? So that's a good tip, is the 20-day moving average on the hourly is good for trending markets. 9 EMA I really don't use unless I'm scalping. Tons of answers, tons of questions about Roku. I'll do Roku, and I'll answer like 2 or 3 more questions, and then I'm gonna get off tonight. So whatever else you guys have, feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll get over that in a second. Let me just do Roku real quick. So Roku got absolutely decimated. And we're at a very, very key area, as you can kind of see here on the monthly. We're at a very, very key area, so we would like to see ideally pretty much this area hold. So we need to see $58 hold. If we end up seeing that, then our next real target would be right here at this monthly level. The next real target would be within this monthly range right here, right about there. And then our next max major target wouldn't be until 68 and 70. So then if we end up not holding, then we can continue down to pretty much all the way down here. Right to there would be another major one right there. So let's go on the smaller term time frames now. So if we do not hold $58, then we continue down to 57.40, 55, and pretty much like 52. If we do hold, then we can continue up, make a nice little higher high, higher low, right here, and right here. Yeah, that's Roku. Is the daily time frame best to spot gaps? Yes. I've found most success spotting gaps on the daily time frame. Are you a swing trader? Not usually. I'm more of an intraday trader, but I do swing trade if the conditions permit it. What do you use to trade? I use Thinkorswim, and I also trade futures with Tradeovate. Can you do a class on supply and demand? I have a couple sessions I put on my YouTube about supply and demand. There's probably about like 3 hours worth if you want to go check it out. Here, I'll drop my YouTube link real quick. There you go. Hold on, let's see what else we have. Oh, this is a big one. Okay, so hi Scrub, love your content, how you explain things in a very simple way that I'm able to understand. I know you were talking about hosting a group mentorship session last week. Is there any more spots for that? Thanks again. Oh yeah, wow, I really appreciate that. Yes, I have about, I think 1 or 2 more spots. It starts this Tuesday. It's going to be 3 hours, or excuse me, not 3 hours. I apologize. It's going to be 3 months long, about 30-hour session total. It's going to be Tuesdays and Fridays. We're going to have market recaps, basically just, going over the market, what to expect for the upcoming week, stocks to watch, trade breakdowns, A to Z educational stuff, gauging progress along the way. It's basically me in a sense holding your hand, especially if you're a newer trader or you're still struggling. My goal is to help you become self-sufficient. I really don't want anyone in here relying on signals. I want you to know why I do something and kind of, the education behind it. It's very, very important to become a self-sufficient trader. So if that sounds interesting to you, it starts on Tuesday. I think I have like 1 or 2 more slots left. Since it's kind of last minute, I'll happily throw you a discount. So just message me on Telegram or Discord and we can talk about it if it sounds interesting to you. Really appreciate that again. Thank you so much. All right, what else do we have? What am I buying tomorrow? Don't know. I don't know yet. It's not the pre-market, not really sure. Do I trade oil stocks? Yes. Yipperdoodle, I do. So oil stocks. Now here, let me take a kind of a step back. So oil stocks are personally, I only trade them under one condition, is if it's bullish. I do not trade oil if it is bearish whatsoever. I personally like to, because if you've ever traded oil, oil is like when it runs, it runs out of the gate very quickly. So it's definitely a morning based trade. So if you miss like the first like 15, 30, 45 minutes, you pretty much miss the entire move, right? Because like most of the time it kind of does the move within like the first hour, maybe hour and a half. And then it kind of just doesn't really do anything else the rest of the day. Sometimes it does, but most times it kind of just sputters out. So like first move here, about an hour, then it does nothing. Downside move, downside move. So it can have downside moves for sure. I just personally only like to be bullish on oil. That's just me personally, but it can do the same thing. It can move right out of the gate, bullish or bearish. So oil, I would highly recommend utilizing an open breakout strategy with oil sector. So basically trading it pretty much right out of the open the first like 2 to 5 minutes. And then getting in on pullbacks if you missed that first initial impulse. And then after like the first hour, I would just, not really trade oil anymore and just look for something else, because historically it doesn't really do too much. As we said, after like that first hour, hour and a half doesn't really do too much. How do you think about Bitcoin? I honestly haven't really looked at it. I'm going to be super frank. I usually only long-term invest in Bitcoin, truthfully, so I don't really look at it in like a week-to-week basis, but I'll do it really quickly. So if we don't hold this 18,000 mark, we go down to 14K. If we hold 18K, we go to 25K and 30K. That's pretty much the macros. Hope that helps. Am I holding any swings currently? No, not yet. Do shop, sure. I'll do 1 or 2 more for you guys and make it off, because I wanted 30 minutes and we're now at like 50. I love you guys. Just trying to help. Okay, so shop, actually kind of the same thing as Roku. It has got absolutely decimated. It's at a very key area. It needs to hold pretty much like in this area, right about there. If it, oopsie poopsie. If it doesn't hold right there, it can continue lower. Next real area would be here, 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 and here. So if it does hold $28, then we go to about 30 bucks, 34, 36. I don't really see it coming all the way up here just yet, but this could be in the future, maybe 40 bucks. And 45. So those are the targets for you. Right about here. So if we end up holding and we ended up actually reversing here with this tiny little bull hammer that's forming, we could end up maybe coming back up to here or even up here. So about $35 would be a good major first target for you. Oh, geez. Oh, Ben, I don't think you've been in some of my sessions, huh? So for the people that have been in my sessions before, when you ask me if it's bullish or bearish this week, I usually will grill you, but I'm feeling nice. So let me educate you instead. So please get that mentality out of your mind when you say, is it going to be bullish or is it going to be bearish this week? We do not know. We want to wait until the pre-market and see how the levels look, what happened in the overnight session, and what is actually setting up for that specific day. We do not want to have a one-sided bias. We kind of talked about that in the beginning of our session. Having one-sided biases usually do not fare well. So just kind of be open-minded and not have one specific game plan in mind. Like me personally, I usually have about 3 different scenarios I like to trade. So it's like, okay, here's scenario 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay, so scenario 1 and 2 are a wash, but looks like scenario 3 is playing out. Cool. I'm gonna do scenario 3. Right. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Hope that helps. Thoughts on using fib levels? Yes. Do you chart ES future levels? Yes. Okay. I've been asked about Visa very often, so I'll do it. I'll do it for you just because I like you. One sec. Okay. All right. So key area that needs to hold on Visa is 180. we did just form a new higher low that needs to hold as well. If 182 does not hold, we go down to 180. 186 is next. 186, 187, and then 187 region. And let's go to the weekly real quick. Right there, right there, and right there. Okay, let's go to the hourly. So those are your pretty much your major levels. We're in a little bit of a consolidation right now. We need to break below this area, or we need to break above this area. We do have a tiny little gap to fill right there. So that's our first major target, 185. And then 187 is our next major target, and then 190. Psychological whole number 190. If we do not hold this higher low, we continue down to 181, 180, and 179. Hope that helps. We already did LULU. I'll post a recording of this in a little bit, but yeah, we already did LULU. So, but here are the levels if you want to just check it out right now. Here are the levels. Interesting question. Were you a content writer before TCX by any chance? I suppose you could say that. I've been creating my newsletters for almost like 15 months by now. So I guess you could consider that content writing. But yeah. Okay, last one. Google. Google's actually at a very interesting spot. So if you notice here, this is the 200-day moving average on the weekly time frame. So this level is very major. It needs to hold. If it does not hold at $98, then our next real area would be 97. But that's probably going to get, just pierced through really quickly. But this area is definitely another key area as well. This is a quarterly level, and it's also where we had a once resistance, then turn support. So if we end up falling below 98, we have 97 and 92, and probably a psychological whole number of 95. There will be defense. Bulls will probably defend that. Okay. 102, 104, $100. So what do I mean by a quarterly level? A quarterly level is a 3-month time frame. So 3 months worth of time frame. So one of these candlesticks represents 3 months worth of price action. But yeah, here are the upside and downside levels. We have a tiny little demand zone forming right there. There's a demand. So we need to hold $98. If it doesn't hold, we continue lower. There are the targets. If we hold, we break 100. There are the upside targets. Hope that helps. For your question about Square and Coin pretty much move pretty similarly. So you kind of just can use the Coinbase analysis that we did, because Coin and Square move honestly pretty similarly. So a couple people ask about kind of my information to contact me. Here's my contact information. If you want to ask me questions, if you just want to chat in general, if you want to do trade breakdowns, reviews, whatever you want to talk about, always happy to help. And for those people that are inquiring about my mentorship that starts this Tuesday, just please message me privately. We can talk about it. I'll give you a nice little discount since it is definitely last minute. But regardless, I really, really, truly appreciate you guys for joining. Hope you learned some cool stuff. And also, this is pretty much my main watch list for the entire week. This is everything I'm watching, by the way. So I'll just leave this up for you guys. But yeah, let's have an awesome week and enjoy the rest of your night. Stay safe. Toodaloo.